Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, cleaning contractors, Jordan Tong here, your host. Hey, so real quick before we get started, I would greatly appreciate a subscribe, hitting the subscribe button on this, and also leaving us a review. Reviews are super helpful in helping get the word out about what we're doing. So yeah, I'm a little slow to getting this podcast out this weekend or this week. I've had a long weekend, doing a lot of stuff. So just quick side note, one of the things that I do, I've got 6 kids, and we live on 3 or 4 acres, and we have some chickens in our backyard, and it's one of the things that my kids do and take care of and that sort of thing. So our chickens have been getting, we've lost a couple chickens to like hawks or foxes or something, and so we've been working on a building project, and so it's brutally hot here in Kentucky, and we've been outside building a chicken run all weekend, and my legs are cut up from wire hitting them, and I'm exhausted, but I am here again on Monday recording this podcast. So you guys did not sign up to hear all that, but there it is. So today we're going to talk about 8 parts of a solid contract. So shifting gears here, having a cleaning a contract for services that you're going to have with your customers is important, and there's different things that you need to make sure that you have in your contract that are helpful, that are going to protect you, that are going to make the relationship smooth. So I am, traditionally I'm not the kind of guy that likes contracts. So my tendency is to be more of a handshake sort of guy. Like, I want handshake agreements, and I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason otherwise. But in reality, contracts are not bad. They're not necessarily to create animosity from the get-go. It's more to set boundaries in a relationship that you can hold each other accountable to make sure you stick with your end of the deal. And so they can be helpful in that regard. We want to avoid contracts that are super lopsided. So a principle we always want to apply is to treat others like we would want to be treated. The old golden rule. And so we want our contracts to be that way as well. We don't want it to be lopsided in one direction or the other. And I think that's a good practice. I think it helps cultivate trust. So that being said, let's talk about 8 things, and these are in no particular order. And I'm sure we could add some additional ones to this if that's something we wanted to do. Let's talk about 8 things that should be in your contract. So the first one of those is going to be a contract term. So by contract term, I just mean how long this contract is for and when does it expire, and does it have renewals built into it? So, ideally you want to always be under contract. You don't want it to expire. So one of the things we've written in our contracts historically is that a contract will automatically renew at the date for an additional year, and it stays in effect for another year if no changes are made, if no one cancels, that sort of thing. But a contract term is good because, some of us are afraid to do that because we don't want the conversation about rebidding to come up. So we say, let sleeping dogs lie. And so sometimes we can avoid the terms out of fear of that we may lose the account. But contract terms are great to be able to reestablish the relationship. And really, if you're going to get price increases, contract terms are a great way to go about doing that. Something we've done here because people are expecting them at those particular points. So, if you if you try to hit someone with just an out of the blue price increase, it can often be seen with suspicion or whatever. But if you do it at the end of a term, it makes sense, and that can be helpful in that regard. So having a contract term, I think, is really good. And closely related to this is having an early termination prevention. So in having a term for the contract is helpful, but what about in the event that a customer just wants to get rid of you? So many janitorial contracts just have a simple 30-day out clause that if you want out, if anybody wants out, particularly the customer, they can get out with a 30-day notice. So we would like to have a little bit more protection in there. And so what we will write is that the contract stays in effect until through the term, and that the customer can cancel the contract, but only if there is a issue with the service that is not corrected. So what we say, I'm going to read you what was a clause in our contract. Termination of this agreement prior to expiration of the term can only be predicated on uncorrected service issues within the scope of services as set forth herein. Prior to cancellation of services by the client, the contractor must be notified in detail in writing of the issue and provided not less than 15 days to correct the issue. If the issue is not resolved, client shall provide a 30-day written notice of cancellation. So the idea is that we want to push someone to say, hey, look, if you're going to cancel, it's got to be because we're doing a really bad job for you. Now, would this hold up in court? I don't know. Probably not. And if they really wanted to get out, I'm not so sure that we would, fight them to stay in. But I do want that to be, I don't want them to maybe, someone comes along and gives them a lowball offer, and then they look for just any way to get out of their current contract. What I'm trying to do is guard or shield against those sorts of things happening, because we are making an investment into the account and putting a lot of labor and effort into maintaining that. And so we think a term is healthy and not, in those early terminations that aren't predicated on service are not good. Okay, so let's move on. That's number 2. Number 3 is going to be payment terms. This is pretty short and sweet here. So in terms of payment terms, we just want to make sure we have something in the contract that we can point people to if there ever becomes an issue. So we prefer 30-day terms, and typically the way we bill is we bill on the first of the month for the upcoming month's service, and then we have a 30-day term on that. So what that means is, so let's say for, the month of July is coming up. So we'll bill out July 1, and that's 4 July services, and we're expecting payment by the end of July, which means we're getting our money right as we wrap up the service for that given month. That's helpful. That helps us with cash flow. We'll have some customers that'll push back on that and want something a little bit different, and we'll typically capitulate a little bit. But we don't want to get out past 60 days or anything like that. And that we don't want to become the bank for somebody else. Okay, so number 4 is going to be a scope of work. I think this is really important. In the event that there are service issues that come up, having a good scope of work that is simple but also clarifies what's expected of you as a company and what you're providing is helpful. There's a tendency for there to be a level of ambiguity in what we're doing and subjectivism, I guess. Someone's definition of clean could change over time. So we want to have some level of specificity in what they're expecting of us and what we're giving for the price. And so scope of work is a good place to help define this. I see some people make the mistake of having these, overly complicated or detailed scopes of work that include so much stuff that ends up not getting done. And I just don't see how that serves the purpose of the scope of work in a contract. So that would be one that I would tack on that I would make sure that I have. So that's number 4. Number 5 is an indemnification clause. This is pretty standard in basically all contracts. I mean, I've dealt with contracts not only in our industry, but in construction industry and some other places. And you're basically just wanting someone, and you're typically okay to do this mutually, is we're just not going to sue you for something that wasn't directly your fault. And the idea is to avoid getting lumped in with these lawsuits, which happens. And it may not be the company's desire to, but maybe their insurance company is the one suing, and they lump in. Let's say something happens at the facility, and they just lump in all of the contractors that are serving in that facility in that lawsuit. And that can happen, and then you get drug into this. And so this is a way just to prevent that sort of thing from happening if possible. Okay, number 6 is going to be supplies and equipment. So you just want to spell out who's responsible for supplies. And, this may seem silly. It may seem like an obvious one, but it sort of goes along with the scope of work discussion that we want to know who's responsible, who's paying for it. Is the contractor or the customer going to give us a location to keep those? Is the customer paying extra for certain supplies, maybe toilet paper, paper towels, and do we have that pricing outlined and how that works? Those are the kinds of things that we'd want to just clarify there. Let's see, number 7 is extra work pricing. So in our contracts, when we sell a job, we often like to sell in such a way that we leave off extra bill work, project work. So window cleaning, carpet cleaning, strip and waxing floors, overhead dusting and cleaning, those sorts of things. We like to leave that out of the existing contract and let those be add-ons that the client sort of picks a la carte as once we're into the relationship. We found this to be profitable. Our managers enjoy this. We end up, and really it's good for the customer, because when you put a bunch of project work built into a contract, it often doesn't get done. We've all bid on these government contracts that have, strip and wax floors 4 times a year. Well, no one's stripping and waxing the floors 4 times a year. It just doesn't happen because it's not needed. It's not necessary, but they put them in the contract anyway. And so we want to avoid that, and having pricing is helpful. It gives your managers something solid to say, hey, okay, you want us to do this area. All right, well, we're charging here, whatever it is, 10 cents a square foot for carpet cleaning, and we have a minimum of $500. And so it's right there. It's easy. It provides clarity, which eliminates frustrations, hopefully, that could potentially pop up. So, okay, the last one, number 8, is having a clause in your contract related to the customer taking your employees. So for a long time, we did not have an issue of this really ever happening. But as we started picking up some larger accounts, we had customers that would grow to like some of our employees and then would steal them from us, essentially, offer them some sort of job there, making better money, and then we're on the hook to go find somebody else. And, and the customer may complain to us or whatever if we don't find a good person. And it created some level of difficulty. And it started happening, there was one account in particular. It was a gigantic place, and they had some temp companies that had an office set up in those organizations. And those temp companies were just headhunting our employees all day, every week. And so we've put something in our contracts that tries to mitigate that. Now, in saying that, if an employee that works for us gets a good job offer from one of our customers, we want that for our employee. We don't want to hold them back or keep them in a job making less when they could go make significantly more money somewhere else, and that would be good for them and their family. We don't want that not to happen. We wouldn't prevent that. But we also don't want companies just being able to poach our people whenever and however they want. And so we've put a little clause in our contract that requires the customers to pay us a small fee for, you call it a headhunting fee, to take our employees. And, you could do this, you could make it a couple $100, $500, whatever it is. It's enough to where it helps you replace the person, and maybe alleviates a little bit of the pain, but it's not crazy expensive. And it's I think it would prevent unnecessary poaching or just the stuff that's frustrating. to you that maybe gets to where it feels excessive or happens a lot. But I think it'll protect you in those cases. But if we ever run into a scenario where we need to, ease up on it because we want an employee really to have a good opportunity, we would. And we would never let it ruin the relationship with the customer. But we're really just trying to protect ourselves from being taken advantage of in that relationship, which can happen. And again, contracts are designed to set up fences to help maintain a good relationship and eliminate as much frustration as possible. So hey, listen, if you're selling commercial cleaning services, you need to have a contract in place that's more than just a one pager. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the price. You need to be thinking through that, particularly as you get larger customers. And I think these 8 things are good to put in there. If you go to our website, elitebsc.com, on the homepage, there's a free form section. You can go down there and click on that, and you can get a sample copy of a contract that we have used in the past with some notes explaining why we put certain things in there. And most of the stuff we talked about today would be in that contract that you can download. So head over to elitebsc.com to check that out, and maybe that will be helpful. And so, yeah, I hope this maybe scratches an itch. Maybe it's something you've been meaning to do and haven't done it yet, and maybe this is the last little push to get you over the edge. These contracts, I think, will make you a better organization and protect you, and all around it's a good thing. So I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.